Welcome to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to give you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
Hey, listen up and don't skip over this. Before we get started, I want to let you know that I am giving away completely free copies of my latest best-selling book, The Only Skill That Matters. This book is going to teach you how to upgrade your memory, read faster, learn more, and conquer your dreams. And it contains all new content written for 2020. Now, again, I am giving away completely free copies of this book. All you need to do is pay shipping and handling. So to pick up your free copy as a listener of this podcast, visit freelearningbook.com. That's freelearningbook.com. Greetings, SuperFriends, and welcome to this week's episode, which is lovingly handcrafted and assembled thanks to a review from Dancing Katrina entitled Fasting? 4 stars. Not sure how the episode on playing piano has to do with ketosis and fasting, but overall good podcast and content. Well, thank you very much, Katrina. Yes, it is a mixed bag of all the different ways we talk about superhuman performance, but I'm really glad that you're enjoying the show. And if you have not left a review yet, please go ahead and do so that I can embarrass myself on the air when I read it out. On to today's episode. Ladies and gents, today we are joined by Carey Peters. She is a national board certified health and wellness coach, an ICF Certified Life Coach, and co-founder of the fastest growing health and life coach training in the world, Health Coach Institute. She's created a ton of different businesses, generated over $100 million in revenue. She has been a coach for 14 years, and she has worked with a lot of really, really high profile and high performance people. Carrie and I had this episode on the books for quite some time, and we decided on the fly that we wanted to kind of pivot the subject of the interview and go more into the mindset and how to deal with the fear given the crisis that we are all facing right now in March of 2020 and how scary the world has become. As Carrie pointed out to me, all a coach ever does is help people work through fear to overcome challenges. And that's why I felt this was the right opportunity to talk about how to manage some of the fear that a lot of us are experiencing, rightfully so, and how to make the most of it. I really enjoyed the episode. I learned a lot, and I know that you are going to enjoy this episode with Carey Peters. Carey Peters, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Well, thank you so much. I'm doing great. I'm super excited for our conversation today.
Likewise, I've heard so many amazing things about you. We had an amazing woman named Erica join our team, and she was like, you've got to email Carrie and get her on the show. So I'm really excited. I think we have a great topic for people. Given the situation that we're all in, we're recording this in March of 2020, which probably will say just about everything for people listening to this a few years down the line. So, Carrie, I want to get into our topic today, which is just going to be mindset under adversity, and I'm sure we'll get into much, much more. But first, I want to give people a little bit of background on who you are, how you became so passionate about health and helping others. What was kind of your superhero origin story?
Well, I tell you, I mean, in my 20s, I thought that I was completely living my dream. I always wanted to be an actress. And I was doing that. I was doing it professionally. I was Screen Actors Guild and Actors Equity and working. And I thought, this is the best thing ever. I'm living my dream. I've always wanted to do this since I was, a kid. But the truth was I would come home every night and I would binge eat. It was Ben & Jerry's chocolate fudge brownie, frozen yogurt, because frozen yogurt is healthier than ice cream. And I was eating that every night. And this went on for 7 years. And truthfully, if I was really honest, that wasn't the only junk food. I was binge eating all day and eating the crappiest possible foods like Kraft macaroni and cheese and peanut butter Captain Crunch and Hostess powdered sugar donuts and Taco Bell bean burritos, which I would get without cheese because for some reason that made it healthier. And then in the meantime, I was completely like trying to exercise and manage, like, when essentially I just had this massive food addiction and I hated how I looked. It was a mess, but I didn't allow myself to see that until my stomach started rebelling. And I started getting what was called IBS. I mean, you can imagine eating that like amount of food and that kind of food, like your stomach is not going to feel good. And so I went to see a gastroenterologist and he said, well, you have IBS. Here's a prescription for a drug. It was called Zelnorm at the time. I don't even know if it still exists, but he said, here's a prescription for Zelnorm and you'll probably have to take this for the rest of your life. And I'm not against medication, but there was just something inside me that said, wait a minute, no, you're going to tell me I'm a bit of a rebel. So if someone tells me I have to do something, I'm like, really? Are you sure? And I remember walking out of the appointment and thinking like, shouldn't we talk about what I eat? Is this really it? I'm just taking a prescription for the rest of my life and that's going to solve the problem. And I just was not satisfied with that answer. And I started researching about food and nutrition and started making changes in my diet and trying to deal with the fact that I had this eating disorder and just starting to try to find ways to heal. And I did slowly but surely start to really make shifts and was so excited and became so passionate about health and wellness. And in the meantime, I was like, gosh, I think I might want to help other people with this too. Is there like a way for me to do that? And I was looking at becoming a licensed clinical social worker or a psychiatrist or PsyD. And I was like, man, I don't want to go back to school for like 7 years and be like $80,000 to $100,000 in debt and not know if I'm going to have a job, and have to like that just doesn't sound right. And then my sister sent me this email about somebody who was this thing called a health coach. And I was like, what is this? And I was reading about this person and like looking at her website. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So you can combine like the passions of health and wellness with coaching, which is a way to help people that isn't therapy, but is very like practical and action focused. And you don't have to go back to school for 7 years. And like, it just started clicking in my mind, like, oh my gosh, this is something I could do. I could do what I love. I could help other people. And I always wanted a career that was virtual, that I could do from home or anywhere, because I'm just super introverted. I did not like going to an office every day. So I was kind of like putting the pieces together going, this sounds absolutely perfect for me. And off I went. I decided to become a health coach. Yeah. And that was the beginning 14 years ago of a journey that's now taken me into beyond health coaching, life coaching, business, like in trying to get to like a mastery level to such a degree that I had other coaches start to ask me to train them. And they're saying, well, how are you building your business? And how are you coaching? And what are you doing? And I partnered with another health coach, Stacey Morgenstern. And for the past 10 years, we've been training coaches. We've trained, I think, over 20,000 coaches in over 90 countries all over the world in how to coach and how to build a business. And now we also certify health and life coaches through our Become a Health Coach training program. So that's the story in a nutshell.
Incredible. Good for you. And what a story to go from being kind of in this position where you felt helpless to being empowered and then empowering others and then empowering others to empower others. Right. It's kind of this ladder of empowerment. Now, I want to ask you, what does a health coach do for the uninitiated?
This is such a great question. A health coach, we define that at Become a Health Coach is that a health coach is a master of habit change. And that habit change specifically around health, it usually has to do with diet and lifestyle. And that what we have noticed, like what I noticed as a coach, is that oftentimes when it comes to health and wellness, people have an idea of what they should be doing for themselves. I mean, the basics of like eating vegetables, drinking water, movement, sleep, like you can read about those in Self magazine. Like most people know that kind of stuff. The problem is that they don't do it. And so it's that distance between knowing and doing that feels like a million miles. And how does one cross that distance? And the fact is there's really no sort of professional in the healthcare marketplace that is trained to help people do what they know they should be doing. There's no one, and that's habit change.
Yeah.
There's no one that has that skill set. So, given the fact that lifestyle disease is like one of the most prominent, I mean, it's a scourge, really. I mean, the millions of people suffering from chronic lifestyle diseases that can be prevented by changes in nutrition and minor changes, really small changes in nutrition and movement, sleep, not smoking, etc. There's no one though in healthcare that can help people actually do that. They don't have the time, A, and B, they're not trained in the science of habit change and how do you work with someone over the course of a couple of weeks to create new neural pathways in their brain and new sort of beliefs about who they are and what they can accomplish so that their behavior can naturally start to change. And it's not about willpower. It's not about pushing through, because that only lasts so long. I mean, willpower fades after a while, especially with the demands of our modern life. We're already so stressed. We can only hold willpower for so long in a day.
Right.
So what we have to do is help people in order to really be a master of habit change, as we define it at the Become a Health Coach training, is that you have to go kind of work backwards and not focus on changing actions, but focus on changing thoughts and beliefs. And that when you have different thoughts and beliefs, you naturally take different actions. And that's how lasting change, that's how habit change becomes lasting. Wow. Versus like, here's a checklist, eat this, not that. Well, I mean, that's just not very useful over the long haul.
Yeah, no, I love it. And this is something that I've studied so much over the last few years because it kind of all comes down to habits and the neuroscience. I mean, it all comes down to what's happening in your brain and are you able to beat this kind of, I was actually just reading about it today in Wait But Why, right? He talks about, you have this software, but then you have the higher thinking. And it really is, it's a beautiful analogy for the reptilian brain versus the mammalian brain. And the fact that we have this software wired into us and we have to work really, really consistently. I won't say hard, but you have to be very, very consistent to rewrite that software.
Yes, there has to be an integration between that critter brain and that human brain. And the reason that people feel stuck or they feel like that's the same habits are repeating over and over again, the same patterns are repeating over and over again, is because you have the critter brain whose main focus is safety. And then you have the human brain whose main focus is growth and learning. And the two of them are butting heads. It's like one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, and you can't go. So what an outstanding coach does is integrates those two brains. So they're not fighting each other. It has the critter brain feeling safe to move toward the thing that the human brain wants. That's, in my opinion, like what a great coach does.
I love it. And that takes us really nicely into the segue of what you and I were talking a little bit about before we hit record, which is what happens when we are in a state of crisis, like most people I would say are right now. And what is that critter brain doing versus what is the reality that we need to be in and operate in order for society to continue to function, for us to continue to function and hold it together while this thing blows over. Tell me a little bit on your thoughts about that.
Yeah, well, this is great because we talked about the definition of a health coach. The way we define life coaching, because we train both health and life coaches. We're actually one of the only schools that does a dual certificate like that. And the reason why is because, as a health coach, I know it's never just about health. People are always coming to you about their life. So to pretend that you're just going to be talking about food just doesn't make sense. So a life coach, the way we define it, is someone who helps others overcome fear in order to create the life that they want. And right now we have it's like the Super Bowl of all Super Bowls of the experience of fear, right? Just personally, collectively, it's like every critter brain in the world is screaming because that part of our brain is worried about our physical safety, the physical safety of the people that we love. We're worried about financial safety. It's like that critter brain is on overdrive.
Right.
Overdrive. So what we as coaches, this is like, oh, this is what we were made for, right? This is the expertise of going, how can we use everything in our arsenal to calm the critter brain, reconnect it to the human brain, so that we can there's the facts of what's going on in the world that are what they are and that we can't necessarily control. But then there's our response to everything that's happening and that we can control. And that's what we need our human brain for. We need the cortex for that, because we can choose and decide, what is this time going to mean for us? We can choose, this is the end of the world. I'm going to die and be in my financial ruin. Or we can choose, this pandemic is going to be the thing that has me emerge stronger, healthier, more inspired, more on purpose, further ahead in my goals and dreams, that this is going to be the portal to my greatest transformation.
Yes.
Because what greater test? Like, how many of us have lived through a pandemic? Not very many.
Yeah.
I mean, we've experienced crisis before, like in 2008, for example. I actually started my coaching business, really started making money in my coaching business in 2008. And then 2009 was my first 6-figure year as a coach, which many people said, that's crazy. What are you doing? Why are you doing this right now? Nobody is going to be investing in coaching. That's not going to be happening. And I was just like, no, that's not true. Number one, there's panic. Yes. But panic is not what's actually true. Like, people are investing in things that solve their problems. Products and services that solve people's problems, the people invest in those. And that's true in times of crisis or not. Mm-hmm. So just understanding that we can decide what I'm going to plug into. Am I going to plug into the experience of fear and decide everything's falling apart? Or am I going to plug into the possibility of what the transformative power of an epic event like this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to ask, I mean, when you talk about transformation in coaching, is it always fear? Because you made a statement, which I think the uninitiated might think like, oh, that's a blanket statement. You know, the definition is to overcome fear to live the best possible life that one can live. But, you know, I'm a bit of a rebel too. So part of me goes, is it always about fear? And I have a feeling you're going to say it is.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, if there's something that you want and you don't have it, there is something in the critter brain that is telling you you can't, because if you do, then love, safety, or belonging is at risk. The 3 basic human needs are love, safety, and belonging. If the critter brain gets a whisper of any of those being at risk, it's going to tell you no. And it's going to find a very logical, valid reason for why it should be no, like reasons that we wouldn't feel like we could challenge. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, it really kind of does come down to that. I think there is a certain limitlessness. Now, granted, I can say, I want to go out and be an NBA player. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's probably not going to happen in the next few months.
Or ever, you know? So it's not that I'm saying we can be anything. It's just that I think that when we're going after the things that we want in our life, if it's taking us, if you think about like a telephone pole, for example, and the telephone pole represents your beliefs about what you have to do, be, or have in order to keep love, safety, and belonging intact. If you have a rubber band around you and that telephone pole, you're in the rubber band together, but you start walking away from the pole toward the thing that you want, whether it's losing weight or making more money or having a better relationship or whatever it is that you might want, you start walking away from that pole, but your rubber band is around both of you, but you're walking away. And what happens? The rubber band gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and then it snaps back, it retracts. Mm-hmm. Which is like, if you feel like I feel like there's something holding me back. That is quite literally what's true, what's happening. And it is the beliefs. That pole is not bending, it's strong. It's our beliefs about what we feel like we have to do, be, and have in order to keep love, safety, and belonging intact. So what we have to do is learn how to shift so that pole can move with us. So we move together toward the thing that we want. And certainly in my own life, there's no way I would have created the results that I've created, whether it was overcoming a food addiction or building 4 businesses in the course of 10 years that have generated over $100 million in revenue. Like I had no belief about myself as an actress back in the day, of a business person, of someone who could deal with money in any fashion, of someone who could be a boss. Like I never, ever could have believed that. I didn't believe I could be a parent. I didn't believe I could be married. I mean, I had no belief systems for any of the things that exist in my life right now. And the only way that has happened is as a result of being able to shift that pole of beliefs, shifting what I believe I can do or be or have, and still be safe. Have my critter brain feel that I'm safe in the world. And that's not to say just to quickly say ooh, I've arrived at the mountain. Look at me. My life is perfect. That's not what I'm saying. I'm still growing and changing now, even still. And of course we all will until we get to the other side.
Of course. Of course. All right, let's take a quick pause and thank this episode's sponsor, BlueBlox Blue Light Blocking Glasses, the only blue light blocking company in the world that create evidence-backed lenses for filtering blue and green light. Their Australian lab-built lens technology is fitted into the most fashionable frames, and they can even make prescription and reading glasses in their optics lab. So whether you want to wear their Sleep Plus glasses that block 100% of blue and green light, their Summer Glow Mood Booster glasses, or even blue light computer glasses that don't have a yellow tint, BlueBlox has you covered. Now, I like to wear the Sleep Plus glasses 2 to 3 hours before bed, and they really, really help your sleep. I also like to wear the daytime ones for reducing digital eye strain, headaches, and lowering stress. Now, BlueBlox has free and fast worldwide shipping, and if you use code SUPERHUMAN at checkout, you can get 15% off any pair that you want. Just go to BlueBlox.com, that's BlueBlox.com, and enter code SUPERHUMAN to save 15%. All right, let's get back to the episode. So I want to ask how we go about doing that. Again, as we discussed, there are a lot of people facing a lot of fear right now who maybe can't even get out of that fear and function. So what are the first steps there look like?
Well, I think the first is we've discussed, which is understanding that it is the natural function of your brain to keep you safe. And it is going to sort for every opportunity to do so. And it makes sense that in an environment like this, your critter brain would be screaming bloody murder. Yeah. Just even the awareness of that feels like, okay, all right. And to know that you also have a human brain that can make a different decision about what this time means. Like those two things are awarenesses that some may or may not have. And then the second thing is to look at, okay, once I know I do have choice about this time, what choices do I want to make? And the first one, there are a couple that I want to share, some mindsets to overcome a crisis that I learned the hard way. I have a 4.5-year-old daughter, and after she was born, I experienced horrific postpartum depression. It was so severe that it was life-threatening. And I wasn't sure if I was going to survive. And it went on for 2 years. And that was happening. Goodness. Yes, that was happening while Health Coach Institute was like roaring in growth, becoming the fastest growing health and life coach training in the world. And I'm the face of it, 70 pounds overweight, barely could get up in the morning. My whole body had fallen apart. Like I was literally shattered as a person and was wanting to die every day. I mean, I never, people told me, before I had a baby about postpartum depression and what to look for, and it sounded terrible, but like I never could have imagined that it was that bad. And I tried multiple treatments. Oh, thank you. I tried multiple treatments. It took me like two and some years to find the right treatment. It was very aggressive and was on the verge of hospitalization. But here's the thing, like I had to keep showing up. I had hundreds of employees who were counting on me, thousands of students. I had to do webinars. I had to do live trainings. I had to be on podcasts. I had to do my own videos. I had to show up and perform. And this was like, how was I going to do it? And when I look back on how I made it through that time, I feel like some of the mindsets are applicable, and they're basically sort of new beliefs to try on, new beliefs to see like, and this is something you may hear, listening, may hear some of these, and your critter brain's either going to kind of say yes or no. But even if there's one yes from your critter brain, then that's good enough to hook into your human brain and go, okay, we get to make a shift in our perspective here. So if it's okay with you, I'll share some of those beliefs that I used to overcome that crisis. Okay. Yes. So the first one is that success is showing up, and that knowing that even if you just consistently show up every day in some way, you will eventually win. There was a quote that I saw, I think it was a meme, and I can't even remember who it was from, so I apologize to whoever I'm not crediting. But the quote was, I will win, not immediately, but definitely.
Love that.
Yeah. And that this was a time, like, for example, when I was sick and my body couldn't lose weight. I was doing everything I could and I couldn't lose it. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep showing up for my training. I'm going to work out every day. I'm just going to keep showing. If I can't control my healing, but I can control my habits. So if I keep showing up, eventually something is good is going to happen. All right. So it's like, even if I can just do one squat, it's worth showing up to do it. So say now, like in a crisis, is what am I showing up for today? What kind of role model do I want to be for my family, for my friends, for my community? And what is one way I can show up? And that leads to the second sort of belief, which was I decided I have to aim for 1% improvement. I can't aim right now for, me becoming the best I can be means if there's 1% improvement every day, I'm doing great. And let me tell you, if you're dealing with this crisis and I just coached a woman the other day who has 5 kids at home, has a full-time job, is in school, building her coaching business, has a husband. I mean, is like, that's a lot, So we have to set our expectations of going like some days it's 1%. And other days when I was really sick, there was no improvement. And I had to just accept that as well.
Yes. And I want to add, people get this what the hell effect, right? When they go, well, 1%, where am I ever going to, it might as well not even try. 1.01 times 300 or to the power of 365, meaning 1% better every day equals 37.78. But 0.99 to the power of 365 is 0.03, meaning 1% compounding improvement every day is massive. Massive.
Yeah, we like to say at Become a Health Coach that the future is built on a bunch of right nows. And so we totally underestimate the power of 1%, and it's easier to give up. Well, the fact is we're talking about tenacity. We're talking about determination and resilience. And it's sometimes easier to say, forget it, than realize like, no, if I commit and I'm tenacious and determined about this 1%, my life will change. And again, maybe not today, but it will in the course of a year, as you just outlined, which leads me to my next belief, which was I decided I'm going to widen my timeline and narrow my focus. And that means that depending on your situation, some goals or outcomes might take longer than you had initially planned. But that doesn't mean you stop. It just means that the timeline might get wider. You're still showing up. You're still aiming for 1% improvement. You're still understanding that you're in control of your habits and not necessarily in control of external circumstances. But as you widen that timeline and go, okay, X might take a little longer, but I'm going to narrow my focus to not even day by day, like minute by minute. Sometimes that's what it was for me. What is it today or in this block of time? What is the number one thing that matters? Mm-hmm. How do I chunk this down to in a day? It's like, what are the 3 things that matter? Because you know, and I know, and a lot of people know, that the things that move the needle in our health, in our life, in our businesses, it's not 20 things. It's like 3 things that really matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how can I narrow in and focus on those 1 to 3 things? And if I'm not sure what they are, how do I get help with that? That's why I'm sure it's probably why people would come to you to feel like, what do I focus on? How do I focus? And how do I get those most important things done? But remembering that it's really about widening the timeline and narrowing the focus so that each day you're getting the most important things done.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, I heard inspiration comes in the strangest of places sometimes. I heard a podcast with Russell Brunson today about marketing. And he was talking about, let me teach you a really quick tip for dealing with crisis and stress, which is instead of dealing with the crisis and stress now, and dealing with what you need to be doing to move the needle tomorrow, just switch it. We're not asking you to let go of the crisis and the panic. Just say, I'll do that tomorrow and do what you need to be doing today. And then guess what? Tomorrow, do the same thing. Just put it off one day. I love that.
It's 100%. Yes. You're narrowing your focus. It's not going to be fixed today. So I can spin out about that, or I can decide, okay, these are the 1 to 3 things I need to deal with today. And then tomorrow the crisis will still be there.
Right. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Right. So how I get the choice to deal with it. I love that from Russell. I'm a fan of his for sure. So the next one, the other belief is that, we have to connect in. Now, not everybody may follow me on this one. This may or may not be, popular, but I'll share it anyway, which is connecting to your higher power. However you define that, everyone defines that differently. If you feel that there's something that's greater than you in the world, that's moving the world forward or is the origin of the world or whatever, however you define it or think about it, is connecting into that every day. Because remembering another thing that's incredibly important in a time like this is that we're not alone, actually. I feel alone. I'm sitting alone in my house, but I'm not alone. There's that which is greater helping me. And there were times when I was sick and I had to go teach, 3 live days of training when I really didn't know if I would be able to make it for an hour. And I had to make it for 12 hours for 3 days in a row. And I just literally would pray at the beginning and say, please take over. And they did. And I made it. It's because we're not doing it alone. And so I feel like there's a comfort in whether it's prayer or meditation or however someone connects into a source that's greater. It's incredibly comforting to know that not only you're not alone, but you actually have guidance available to you.
Yes. And it's funny, I don't consider myself to be a religious person by any stretch of the imagination, but I did have a podcast episode where I interviewed a neuroscientist who talked about the effect of God on the brain. And God can be, for us new agey types, it can be the universe or karma or the Buddha or Muhammad. It just had to be a higher power, even if that higher power was fate or, whatever, kismet. And it does have this effect of calming people, of giving people hope, of allowing people to say, you know what, I don't have to stress over this because this one is really, really far outside of my control.
Right.
So
and to your point, it's you're taking the body from a stress response where the nervous system is on red alert to a parasympathetic relaxation response. And if nothing else, all sickness happens in a stress response, and all healing happens in a relaxation response. So if immunity is something, and health, someone is, wanting to boost for themselves in this time, so they're less, what's the word I'm looking for? Less likely to get sick in any way, then prayer and meditation is actually a great way to keep your system healthy because it's got such a relaxing and calming effect.
Yes, absolutely. Carey, we've covered quite a bit. I want to ask, are there any other things that you're doing? I know you're stuck at home with young kids. Are there any other things that you're doing as someone who is so steeped in the research of behavior change to ensure that the best possible habits are forming in this new and strange routine that we're all figuring out?
You mean for me personally?
For you personally, for the family, I think a lot of people are at home right now and they're picking up new habits that are maybe not very good or very deliberate.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is so easy. I mean, I totally understand wine o'clock. I don't drink, but I wish I did sometimes. During this, I completely get it. I think the thing that I'm doing for myself and for my family, and that I think I encourage everyone to do, is that it takes a village in this time. Just because we're at home doesn't mean that we can't have support, and that having a coach, having a mentor, having a community, having a tribe, being in a course, committing a part of your, it's sort of like next to prayer and meditation, the best commitment you can make in a day is being supported by a coach, a trainer, a community, or mentor who can help bring you back continually over and over again to your emotional center, where you can access creativity, innovation, new kinds of thinking, new frameworks, new perspectives. And I just feel like it's too hard without that. For me, I'm on with my coaches. I am, talking even on with my students every day. I'm coaching daily live on our Instagram page because yes, I'm the coach, but they're inspiring me as well. The more support and connection that you can have from people who are holding a strong emotional center and a strong vision for what this time can become for you, the better. That for me is my best action. Yeah.
I could not agree more. Carey, where can people reach out and learn more about everything you're doing? Either work with a health coach that you've trained, or maybe they're interested in becoming a health coach at this time where a lot of people are needing to look for new careers.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing, whether someone wants to become a coach full time or not, even initially when I started, I was like, well, maybe I'll just do this on the side. Just having a side gig and a plan B and something that you can do completely virtually that is incorporating everything that you love. It's such a good idea. We have people actually coming to us more than ever, so curious about what the possibilities are. And you can go to healthcoachinstitute.com and check out certainly our webpage, or you could visit us on Facebook or Instagram. We're Health Coach Inst. And you can see us there. And, like I say, I'm coaching every day live on Instagram. So if you want to hear what is this coaching about? You can come hear me do it.
Awesome. And before I let you go, Carey, I just want to ask, if people take away one big message from this episode and they carry it with them for the rest of their lives, what would you hope for that message to be?
That life is happening for you and not to you.
That is such a good one. And as you know, Sean Stevenson passed away late last year. And those were his last words, believe it or not. He said, "This isn't happening to me, it's happening for me."
God bless him. He was a speaker at our events, and I love him dearly and just sorely miss him. And I'm honored to have that connection with him in any way. So thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. Carey Peters, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and craziness to spend it with us and share some of your wisdom. I know our audience benefited from it.
Well, thank you for having me. It really was a pleasure and an honor. And you're doing such amazing work for your community, and I know they're all loving it.
Thank you so much. And likewise, take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit superhuman.blog. While you're at it, please take a moment to share this episode with a friend and leave us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next week.